So in the last video, we were talking about how women were financially gaining freedom, freedom to express themselves through their appearance and through their actions and through their words. So you have these short bobbed hair, shorter outfits, women dancing, drinking, smoking, saying things that are deemed unladylike. So they were not just spoken and unheard, but allowed to speak in a different way. And these women were often called flappers. Even if you were not a flapper, so if you were more conservative and didn't believe in this changing image of a woman, women did begin to vote. So they had gained the right to vote. And so in general, women were much more free during the 1920s than they ever had been before. Like I said, through media, this was shown and spread across the world. So the golden age of the silver screen starts during this time period. You have characters like Mae West, who says these really kind of catchy phrases that are often seductive in some way, but they really are showing women in another light on TV and on movies, on the big screen. Women are seen as much more feminine, but also vocal and saying things, again, that are not so, ladylike on the big screen. This creates some backlash. So here you have an image. It says, "Daughters of today, see it now." And you have this fear that women would start doing things that were deemed inappropriate or even horrible at the time. So you have midnight bathing parties and leaving her country home in search of a gay college life, gambling, meeting men, even accusations of murder. So this idea that this image of a woman being shown on the big screen and that was being created in real life as well would produce these things that were unacceptable by the 1920s standards. And you had a lot of pushback for this image, of the new image of a woman in these flappers. This creates the Hays Codes, which made it so you couldn't put any kind of sexually explicit content in film. And that existed until you now have the rating system that was developed in the 1960s. That's like R-rated, PG, that takes over those Hays Codes. Those are gone now, and instead we have a rating system. But because of this backlash, you get censorship in media because they thought that all of these horrible things would happen if this new image of a woman was pushed and developed in society. One of your enrichment activities is watching Great Gatsby. I want you guys to look at Great Gatsby, the movie, watch it, and then write about it. But while you're watching, I want you to pay attention to the consumerism, so how people are adopting this consumer culture and how that plays a major role in this film and this free lifestyle. Also pay attention to the women, how the women act, look, dress, how this may be different than the progressive era, or how this represents that flapper with the bobbed hair and freedom, etc. So pay attention to consumerism, the image of a woman, and in general, it's a great movie based in the 1920s. The book was written in the 1920s about the 1920s. So you have the opportunity to watch this and then write about it for one of your enrichment activities. So I'm talking in the 1920s about women going out and drinking, having fun in these big cities with their new money from working in sales jobs or as teachers or whatever they may be. So how are women doing all this if there's prohibition going on? In 1919, you have the 18th Amendment, which bans the sale of alcohol. So when we talked about the temperance movement during the progressive era, you have these social gospel movements that really back the idea of banning alcohol. Tomorrow, we talk about, or week 3, day 2, we talk about The Birth of a Nation, the film, which inspires the KKK to reorganize and grow. And so you have the KKK as well in reforming during the late 1910s, and then they really gained power in the 1920s. And they're also backing this prohibition movement as well, because they see alcohol as attached to the groups that they think are inferior to them. So you have these different groups fighting for the ban of alcohol, and they are successful in 1919 with the 18th Amendment banning alcohol and manufacturing of alcohol. But this leads to organized crime, because just because something's illegal doesn't mean people don't want it, right? People still were demanding alcohol. You have these women going out, partying, and just in general, people were used to drinking alcohol. Alcohol has been a part of American life since America's existence. And so this idea of alcohol just being banned, something that's a part of American life, was not very successful. And so instead of you having legal sale of alcohol, you have this illegal sale on the black market, and organized crime facilitating all this illegal sale of alcohol. You also have the development of speakeasies, the creation of speakeasies, which are these secret bars underground. So you could have something like a candy shop, and then a secret door, passageway, and then below would be these party areas, these extravagant bars, which if you watch Great Gatsby, that's also part of the film. You see a speakeasy as well. But they open across the country as a place for people to gather and drink illegally, despite the prohibition that existed. Some of the results of prohibition is the drinking rate did go down, so you do have a small decrease in the drinking rate, but nothing compared to what the prohibition was meant to do. You also have violent crime skyrocketing. So because alcohol is sold illegally through these organized crime groups, you have violence also skyrocket along with those groups. You also have prisons and jails filled with criminals. So now that drinking alcohol is illegal, if you drink alcohol or you're caught selling it, making it, drinking it, you can go to jail. And so jails start to become overflowing with these new inmates because they weren't prepared for this increase in crime as drinking becomes illegal. And so a lot of jails did not really know how to handle this influx of prisoners. You also have no tax revenue because all alcohol that is sold and consumed is done illegally. And so since the government isn't involved, they don't get any tax money. So that was a big loss in tax revenue for the government. You also have women allowed into bars, which is a positive result. So because you can't regulate these speakeasies because they're not legal, right? There's no government body regulating them because the government doesn't know about them. Women are now allowed in these bars because there's nothing really stopping them since they're illegal anyways. You also have minority groups participating in jazz music, big band music, so African American cultural music being introduced in these bars because there's really nothing legally that can be done to stop them because it is already an illegal place to be. So segregation laws that exist, like Jim Crow laws that exist, don't really have the power to segregate because the government can't enforce it. Harry's Chocolate Shop, which is a Purdue bar on Chauncey near Lafayette, it's in West Lafayette, is thought to be a old speakeasy. So it's a chocolate shop. It used to be a candy store during the time of Prohibition, and then it becomes one of the first places in West Lafayette to get a liquor license right after Prohibition ends. They also have these secret tunnels underneath them that allow you to get to Harry's Chocolate Shop without being on the surface. So it's thought to be part of these speakeasies is Prohibition, which is a kind of cool part of the history of West Lafayette and Lafayette. So that is it for the lecture today. You can watch the first part for the rest. The other thing you'll need to do is this Prohibition lesson, which you just go through each of the different documents. So here's this first one, you'll read through it. So for example, document B is of a woman using a cane flask, so she would hide alcohol in the flask and use it. She also has that 1920 style. You see the bobbed hair and her legs exposed as well, which today's standards, this doesn't look like a risque outfit, but the fact that her legs are exposed makes it an outfit, you know, a flapper would wear. So you have this, and what you do for document B, this is anti-prohibition, because prohibition is the ban of alcohol. So for B, you would write anti, and then an analysis. You should write a sentence or two analyzing what you see or what you read, and try to answer these questions when you do so. All right, I hope this video helps, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and feel free to rewatch this as many times as you like to study, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.